Can you read a basketball whiteboard? That's the question we're asking you here in this podcast. If you've never had a coach pull one out before and draw you up a play when it's a 2-point game at the end of the game, the answer is probably no. And that's an area where hopefully somewhere you'll be able to be presented an opportunity to learn to read a whiteboard. Okay, and here's a bit of a different one because it's not something you can really learn yourself. It's one that you'll hopefully be in a scenario or in a team where obviously you have a coach that does use a whiteboard and uses it productively. Sometimes I've seen coaches run their subs on their whiteboard. That's probably not that productive, yeah? So I think the key here, though, is a whiteboard is a critical tool to learn how to understand as an elite player, because at the higher levels, being able to, in a 60-second timeout, understand what you're trying to achieve in the next 20 seconds of the game, okay, is a real important facet of the game. Okay, and I guess if you don't get that opportunity within obviously a domestic competition or even maybe in a rep when you're starting off at a younger level, the best way here is to really maybe to look online for footage and stuff like that. You can probably pick up some of that stuff of whiteboard timeout situations. But the reality here is that being presented with a drawn picture on a basketball floor and the X's and O's and what they're supposed to achieve, that's a huge asset again for an elite basketball player or player that wants to obviously become professional and what you're trying to achieve with the 5 players on the floor.
I think obviously, yeah, number one, if you have aspirations to be progressing in basketball, or if you think you're already really good, but you're on a team that never uses a whiteboard, reality check right now, let's be honest. All right, because you're not actually at that level yet. But two, the purpose of a whiteboard is, very, very important for in-game situations. So you might have plays that you run that your coach teaches you. You might say, all right, this is an out-of-bounds play. This is a sideline inbound play. This is what we do if there's 5 seconds on the clock. But in a game situation, you might have a multitude of things. You might have something come up in the game that kind of changes the defensive scheme or the offensive layout. So yes, understanding the orientation of the board is huge. Understanding what symbols or markers mean. Not every coach is going to treat it like 2K where they write PG and then your surname underneath it. They might just use numbers such as 1 to 5. They might just simply say follow that circle. That's what you're going to do. And the board gets messy real quick. And so you've got to make sure you know exactly what your job is on that board. And obviously an advanced player would know what everyone's job is on that board, because it'll link back to our communication where you might get onto the court and it's a 1-point game with 4 seconds left. And you look over to one of your teammates and he's looking a little bit shell-shocked, or he's looking a little bit concerned about what's going to happen. And you're able to tell him, hey, you've got to move over there because you remember what the board is. And again, even throwing it back more, playing your role. In a last-minute situation, whatever it is, someone has been designed to catch the ball. Now, you might need a contingency because that gets broken up and the defense obviously prevents that from happening. But ultimately, you don't break the play because you're feeling, don't worry, guys, I've got this. I'm feeling like a hero right now. You've got your job. And if your job is to stand in the weak side corner and be a distraction, then so be it. If your job is just to set the pick, then you set a really good pick, right? If yours is to inbound it, make sure you know we want to inbound it and add some flair to it, right? If you know you're going to inbound it at half court, maybe do a little bit of a fake towards the basket just to create that space. There's a lot of things with reading the whiteboard, and even just in training as well, in training.
Look, whiteboard, if you have a coach that even does a little bit of stuff on the whiteboard, that's a huge benefit. I'm not saying he's going to be necessarily a high level coach in that sort of sense, but just being able to outline what the goals are that, he's hoping maybe to occur on the floor. So whether that's even pulling out the whiteboard at training, I know I do that back in my sessions with rep teams. We go over the whiteboard stuff at training sessions because I know that's the same look that we're going to have in a game when it's a high stakes situation with 30 seconds left to play and we're down by 2 points. Okay, so we look at the whiteboard then and learning how to understand that whiteboard, not only the X's and O's, but a little bit like you alluded to, also things like timings. Okay, because it's not all let's all run at the same time. We need this to happen, then this to happen, then this to happen is the last step. Okay, and again, too many players sometimes stuff that up because they haven't really paid attention, firstly, And more so often is they simply never have worked off a whiteboard before. And that's an area where hopefully you'll get some reps in. And if you don't, well, you're gonna have to find yourself a situation where you can get those reps.